Welcome everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good day, good morning, wherever you are in the world. This is the IKT webinar, Navigating New Realities, Curatorial Work and Global Challenges webinar. Is the first webinar we schedule between 2025 and probably early 2026 as well. Which is the result of the open call we did in spring or summer, I can't remember, for the IKT members. And we're really proud actually to host the first one, which is moderated, organized and moderated by Ferran Barenblit, who is actually here. Thank you, Ferran, streaming from Barcelona. And then we have fabulous speakers today, and so I will actually ask in a minute Ferran to introduce the theme a bit more in details and the speakers. First of all, actually, I just wanted to thank you very much actually for making it tonight, for taking the time. Please remember this video call, this kind of a webinar is recorded. And so actually just we will part of the archive of our resources on the IKT webinar later on the IKT website later on. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself, but I think you see it on the screen. I am Alfredo Cremerotti, the president of the IKT. And we have also Carolina Bailey Hughes, actually, who's the IKT project coordinator. And there we go, the fabulous Carolina, who probably each of you have heard of Carolina at some point or interacted with her. That she is. Anyway, I just wanted to pass the word to Ferran for the general introduction of the themes and the speakers. Thank you very much, Ferran.
Hello, Alfredo. Thanks so much for the presentation, and thanks so much, Carolina, for having us all today. You have been extremely helpful in organizing this, and I'm very happy of being here and being the first. This season, as as an old IKT member. It's not that I'm very old; it's that I joined when I was really young. I remember very well after the 1999 Congress in Barcelona, I joined. So it's more than a quarter of a century of being part of this wonderful association. And I would like to take also the opportunity as a long-time member and as an old board member, to encourage, those of you who are not members to be part of this community. And this is a bit linked to the reason why we're here today. This eye of international. When thinking of the really pressing questions that I think that we have to face as curators today, for me, there's one that is completely linked to this idea of the internationality. That is how we respond in each one of our positions, in each one of our projects, to the global issues today. I think it's more and more clear that the challenges that we face are global. And if it was not clear, I think after, it was exactly a week ago, of the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States, made us very clear that the plan is global. But I think that our tools to respond to that, or to generate a dialogue, are always regional. We hardly can still think of that dream that there's something like a global curatorial arena that would make that each answer, each reply, each project could be translated easily to other places. And that's why we're here today with these three wonderful speakers, that if it's not very clear the globality of this selection, only to say that at least last time I checked on Saturday, there was 60 degrees Celsius of difference between the weather in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and the weather in Asunción, Paraguay. So that to show how huge our difference can be and how local we have to respond. Let me introduce you to the speakers. I will start from east to west. Okay, from east to west is Alima Khairat. who is the artistic director of the Cellini Center of Contemporary Culture in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Cellini Center is due to open very soon. Alima can explain us about that. And is a leading contemporary art institution in Central Asia that aims to empower the local general public and enhance an intellectual community by building a dialogue within the Kazakhstani latitude and the wider Central Asian perspective. The Cellini have been operating since 2018, but now, I think very soon, I mean, in only some weeks or months from today, they're moving to a new venue, an old Soviet cinema that I think is part of the ideas that she will explain us today. Alima has a BA of History at the Curatorial Institute and an MA by Goldsmiths University, also in London. Continue our itinerary moving a bit west, we have Kati Kivinen, who is an art historian and curator based in Helsinki. I mean, I remember her always linked to Kiasma until 3 years ago when she moved to the HAM, the Helsinki Art Museum, and being that in charge of the Helsinki Biennale. That I think that's what, I mean, the focus of her presentation today. And Kati's curatorial practices orientates towards examining contemporary artistic approaches in relation to diverse cultural processes and social, political, and ecological issues within the specific framework of an art exhibition. She's also interested in exploring the diversity of current artistic practice and its associated aesthetic, formal, and media-related issues, especially within the temporal and spatial art forms and the artist's moving image and sonic practices. And then continuing to the west and crossing the Atlantic, we get to Asunción, the capital of Paraguay in Latin America, and to talk to Freddy Casco, who is an artist and an artistic director of the Fundación Texo for Contemporary Art. Freddy is an artist that I have the pleasure of working with very recently, a curator and a filmmaker. He's the co-founder of El Ojo Salvaje, the month of photography in Paraguay, and a member of the editorial committee of the magazine Sueño de la Razón. And he has been in charge of the Texo Foundation for Contemporary Art that he will introduce very soon. That is the main space for contemporary art in Paraguay. As an artist, his work has been seen all around the world, including the Fondation Cartier pour l'Art Contemporain in Paris, which he has a very special relationship, also as a curator, and also, and that's why I'm so proud of the 16th Cuenca Biennial that I curated last year in Cuenca, Ecuador, in which we had the opportunity of working together. And that for me was the point of departure of this discussion. And let me very briefly explain you why. The Biennale tried to really respond to this idea of what are the global pressing issues and how artists are helping us to address them. At that moment, I think there were some, when we were planning the biennial, that were very urgent, including migrations, ecological issues and the challenges that global warming is generating around the world, and overall the fragility of democracy. In a continent, I was born in Buenos Aires, in a continent that has always been built upon this idea of a liberal democracy, how fragile democracies have been. Only during the period of the biennial, only 3 weeks after the opening, that was a really, really moving event that I think it was extremely emotional for all of us. Only 3 weeks later, a number of events developing in Ecuador with a huge constitutional crisis that ended with the army in the streets under a special law of a decree of the president declaring something called the internal war. The biennial was called Maybe Tomorrow. And I have to admit that that title aimed at being a bit utopian, thinking that everybody's possible, maybe tomorrow. But I was thinking only of good things when I chose that title. somebody, only 3 weeks after the opening, wrote, "Oh, the artists of the biennials warned us that this could happen maybe tomorrow." And he said, "It happened painfully today." So that was kind of a emotional shock for me, thinking that what was thought of an utopian horizon of thinking of how we can improve our life, how life, I mean, and our democracies be a bit stronger, suddenly became exactly the opposite. And that also showed me that, yes, we as curators, we as artistic practice, we have to address those issues, thinking that, yes, they are global, but they are also extremely local, they are regional, and there are different ways of doing that. Is that the reason why, I proposed the theme for this webinar? And I'd like to start. Some rules for the webinar will be, three presentation of the three speakers, and then we'll leave time for Q&A, debate, and if you want to start adding your questions, your comments on the chat, we'll try to read them from there. Obviously, if you need to raise your hand and speak, you will be also welcome to. So we'll follow the same structure. And if you want, Alima, we'll start from the east, and we'll follow the sun from the east to the west.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Ferran, for inviting me here. I think it's wonderful for a Central Asian country, a Central Asian institution to be here and to talk more about things that are happening here in our part of the world. I will share my screen. So Ferran at the beginning said a lot about Celine and about our mission. I'm very thankful, but I'll also repeat. So Celine Center is a center of contemporary culture. Oops, for some reason it's not moving. Celine is a regional institution with a focus on contemporary art and culture of Kazakhstan, Central Asia, and the region. We have been working since 2018 as an institution, and our building, a Soviet-built cinema of 1964, is currently under reconstruction by British architect Asif Khan, and we're due to be opened in April 2025. So since that time, we have been, while our building was under reconstruction, we have been thinking and working a lot about trying to understand what does it mean to be a Kazakh institution, a model of a Kazakh institution. Now we understand and we see that our artistic strategy is a symbiosis of two motives, here and now. Here are projects that are based on visual culture, such as contemporary art exhibitions, film program, which is part of history of the building as well, architectural projects, and other performative and experimental formats. Now our research-based projects like publishing, where we publish texts of different scholars and academics in Russian, English, and Kazakh. And today, to this day, we have published over 12 books. We also have an online anthology, Horizon, which is a semi-academic journal where every issue has its editor and a different theme. And I'll speak about Horizon a bit more in detail later. Another research-based project that we have is documentation, which is a digital data set, a thematic archive, where we have chosen a regional practice around the choice of artists and collections that we digitalize and make public. Celine Learning is an educational platform for general public, but also for professionals in the field. And we also have a scholar in residence program. So to respond to today's question, I would like to say that our practice has been quite experimental. Within our institution, we decided to move away from one person's perspective and our approach in this sense is horizontal. So we do not have a curatorial team, and we do not have a curator in chief. Based on our artistic structure, we collectively choose the projects that we would like to develop, and this also led us to thinking about themes that we would like to talk about. And in the horizon of 3-4 years, we have chosen 3 big themes: gender, faith, and ecology. For us, it's vital to hear and also to give a platform for different voices. So for each project, we invite different curators and professionals to develop the program with Zelini. We also have an advisory board and an editorial board, which consists of international and local art professionals, with whom on an informal and dialogical basis we review local discourses and today's global dynamic art field. We seek to expand dialogue in a series of conversations and exchange of ideas by demonstrating through our programs and initiatives that the traditional definition of one curator falls short of capturing today's context. So throughout 6 years, we have been working nomadically in different places, and we have been focused on Seeing Center here in Kazakhstan, in Central Asia, and it is important for us to show that the message and the inquiry comes from our local cultural and geopolitical context. Coming from Kazakhstan and developing a horizontal regional perspectives, we have been doing kind of our own research into understanding a mental map of the region, to see with whom we have similarities and with whom we share similar experiences, whether they're political, geographical, cultural, or decolonial. So on the basis of this, 2 years ago, we started a conversation with Zaman Museum, which is a museum in Bashkortostan in Russia. Our colleagues at Zaman Museum have shared that these conversations that we have been having are very emotional to them and important to them, because for republics within Russia, like Bashkortostan, it's difficult to be seen unless they appear in Moscow first. So building such relationships which are based on trust and horizontal dialogue really became cherished. We do not rush into making projects. We understand that we share kind of similar core values, and we continue having dialogues to see where we can connect and think about creating projects together. So this also led us into our current project of this year, Korkut Sonic Arts Triennial. First edition of it happened in 2022. The history of development of musical culture in Kazakhstan begins in ancient times, when sound was perceived as a guide to other worlds and state of minds. Various instrumental and oral practices served as a form of initiation in battles and in rituals, and music also was given healing properties. Kazakh nomadic culture is based on oral histories, and information transfers through music and sound shape our worldviews. So the name of the triennial, Korkut, derives from the fundamental myths found in many Turkic cultures, a legend of Korkut Tata, the patron saint of musicians, who, in escape from death, created the first stringed instrument, kobuz, and through its sound, he overcame the boundaries of the material world. And the choice of the name, so you probably also noticed that Korkut is a Kazakh way of saying the name of this patron saint, and Korkut is a more of a Turkic way. So the focus of Triennial is on sound art, sonic practices, and music, but it pushes the vision further of the of the institutional boundaries that often restrict these artistic fields. Second edition of Korkut Triennial is curated by Stas Sharifullah, who is also known as Khmot. He's a Bashkort curator, musician, researcher, who's currently based in Basel, and he was born in East Siberia. So the second edition, Rites of Eternal Wind, will showcase some of the most adventurous sonic events and situations, including sound walks, experimental choir performances, hybrid poetry readings, research-driven audio essays, guided listening sessions, sound installations, and live concert. A conceptual framework is rooted in the understanding that Central Asian, Turkic, and North Asian, and many other cultures in the broader region are fundamentally auditory, with oral and listening traditions historically over written ones. Another example is an online anthology, Horizon, which we are publishing since 2021. It is an online collection of research and critical texts, as well as multimedia formats and videos. It's published once a year, and each edition of it has a different editor and a different theme. It is also a great platform for young scholars to be published. So in 2024, in autumn, we published the third edition of Horizon, which is called Truth and Fiction, and it was edited by Furkat Balvanzadeh, who's an Uzbek independent curator, researcher, and filmmaker. This edition focuses on various ecological themes, emphasizing the importance of biodiversity, sustainable practices, environmental conservation. It also discusses the interconnectedness of ecosystems and the impact of human activities on natural habitats. This issue also includes text by Nina Akhvlediani, which tells a story of a Georgian archive of Josip Grishashvili, who is a Georgian poet, a researcher, a journalist, who collected materials related to history, culture, and ethnography of Eastern Turkey, Iran, Southern Russia, and Caucasus. Caucasus. Another text is written by Eleanor Womack, who compares literature, classical literature of nuclear testings in Kazakhstan in Semipalatinsk, and also Maohinui. A longer perspective of Horizon and our aim and goal is to translate it to other languages such as Kyrgyz, Uzbek, Chinese, Turkish, and Persian. Yeah. So the way we work at Celine, it is not a standard practice. It is mostly an experimental one and multidisciplinary. It's always based on building regional perspectives with colleagues in the field. Celine is an independent public institution which aims to empower the local general public and enhance an intellectual and artistic community by building a dialogue within Kazakhstani latitude and therewith a wider Central Asian perspective. It takes its core in building civic society by uniting contemporary artists, emerging theorists, scholars for open reflection and critical debate on its platform. So we are opening in spring of this year, and I would like to invite everyone to come visit Kazakhstan and Central Asia. It's a great, I think it's a great moment that that there is so much interest into Central Asia. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Halima. Well, we wish you the best for your next opening. And only can wait to see it one day. Moving some time zones to the west, we find Kati Kivinen from Helsinki. Kati?
Thank you, Ferran. Delighted to join you and the other speakers today on this webinar. So thank you a lot for the kind invitation. So I'm Kati Kivinen, based in Helsinki, curator and art historian, working currently at the Helsinki Art Museum, which is a museum for modern and contemporary art at the heart of the city center, with a very large collection of both modern and contemporary art from Finland and abroad, and also very rich program of public art, which is one of our key features in our activities. And we are also the home of the Helsinki Biennial, which I will be speaking more today. So I'll share with you my screen. The Helsinki Biennial is an international art event that brings outstanding contemporary art to the heart of the city of the Helsinki, but also to its archipelago nature. And the Biennale is still a very young art event. The first edition only took place in 2021, and now we are working for the third edition to open in next June. The Biennale project is carried out by my home institution, the Helsinki Art Museum, in close collaboration with the city of Helsinki and its many different divisions. The responsibility and maintaining nature's ecological sustainability are key values of the Helsinki Biennial, and thus environmental matters have been given a special consideration from the outset. We aim to respect these values as much as possible in the production of the event. Our mission is to create a platform to communicate the diverse and dynamic nature of the contemporary Finnish art scene and to establish links and collaboration with the wider global artistic landscape. Helsinki Biennial's strength in environmental issues is in its strong commitment to responsibility, extensive and active cooperation with partners, and the desire to promote an attitude of change and to be a pioneer in environmental issues in our field. In Biennial, every new artwork's practical realization and choice of material is carried out in cooperation with different specialists and professionals from environmental and heritage side, and this mostly applies to one of our venues, the Vallisaari Island, which is a very specific case. The Biennial was granted with an Eco-Compass certificate, which is an environmental management system, in 2022 for taking care and for developing environmental issues. This is renewed and reviewed every 3 years through auditioning. And the third edition of the Helsinki Biennial that I have the pleasure to curate in collaboration with Madrid-based curator and art historian and researcher Blanca de la Torre is well on its way. And in this third biennial, we will showcase a total of 37 artists and artist groups. And artists are from all around the world, including a particular focus on South America and Northern Europe. So I counted roughly over 20 countries from where the artists are coming from. Roughly half of the featured artworks will be site-specific new commissions premiering in Helsinki. As curators deeply concerned with the current state of ecological emergency, we are continually researching and exploring new strategies to engage with contemporary art as a pragmatic tool for addressing climate and ecological crisis. That is why we have decided that one of the central axes of the third edition of the Helsinki Biennial should be the transformative power of displacing the anthropocentric gaze. To achieve this, we have made the challenging curatorial decision of placing exclusively non-human agencies at the center of the artistic proposals. We believe that nudging the focus away from human-centric perspectives creates space for others and aims to pinpoint more diverse ways of sensing and transmitting information. Multi-species approaches and interspecies philosophies have increasingly emerged in artistic discourse in recent years, and at the same time, human and non-human relationships have permeated in curatorial narratives of the biennials, exhibitions, and art events, and culture at large. In our case, we have opted for a more radical approach by excluding human figures role in the presented artworks, thus giving this emphasis on non-human protagonism represents to us an important post-anthropocentric gesture aimed at changing the paradigm that has to a great extent contributed to our current ecological and climate emergency. By shifting the focus away from humanity alone, it is possible to make space for and gain understanding of others, while also striving to find more diverse ways of sensing and conveying knowledge about the world. Thus, the Helsinki Biennial seeks to shake us out of anthropocentrism in order to better understand the delicate and severely imbalanced relationship between nature and humankind. Through the biennial exhibition, we seek to create new dialectical spaces that highlight the representativeness of non-human agencies, allowing us to explore ways to decenter the anthropos. We aim to promote representations that blur the essential categories of living and non-living, recognizing that not only non-human animals and plants as subjects, but also encompassing minerals, earth, water, and all entities traditionally relegated to the realm of the non-living. Within this context, the notion of shelter, in its multiplicity of layers, gives the title to the third edition of the biennial. Sheltering implies rethinking our approaches to listening, speaking, showing, and displaying, with the goal of building new spaces of protection. It also conveys a symbiotic approach that seeks to look not only at the surface of things, but also below and beyond, emphasizing the importance of becoming with and belonging to. By displacing the anthropocentric gaze, we aim to discover a plurality of ways to sense and mediate experiences that embrace the ecosystem. This is why we did not want to focus solely on the visual, the most anthropocentric and hegemonic of the senses, but also to incorporate sound, smell, and touch, creating a multisensory experience for the visitors. The exhibition's title, Shelter, was strongly inspired by one of the main venues of the biennial, the Vallisaari Island, that has been free of human habitation for decades. For us, the island represents a form of a shelter, a rich ecosystem surrounded by the sea that has been left to its own devices without active human intervention for a long time. The protected island, located close to the heart of the city, is one of the region's most diverse in terms of flora and fauna. And today the island, with its long history of military use, offers the opportunity to imagine what happens when the humans leave the stage and non-human actors remain. In the third edition of the Helsinki Biennial, art offers shelter and compassion in many ways, both conceptually and physically. The invited artists focus their meticulous observations on the surrounding natural world by also crafting interpretations that envision potential future scenarios. In the works of the artists, notions of non-human storytelling, vegetal neurobiology, animism, non-human memories, shamanism, and anthropology beyond the human will serve as some of the key themes throughout the presented works. While we intend to pay special attention to Nordic region and its neighbors in our selection of artists, we are also engaging in diverse geographies, including regions in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, giving special attention and respect to First Nation artists. As I mentioned in the beginning, sustainability and maintaining the ecological balance are central values of the biennial, with environmental considerations being highlighted from the start, including in the selection of the artist and all the steps of the production. As curators, we see that the task of producing new anthropocene subjectivities must be paired with an expansion of our cultural modes' field of vision. Action for the environment and understanding of the conditions for its well-being will be implemented in this biennial through a comprehensive sustainability plan that intentionally shortens the gap between theory and practice, aligning the discursive plane with the pursuit of the new sustainable ethos. This ethos will be underpinned by the sustainability plan that encompasses every aspect of the biennial's development, production structures, and methodologies. To this end, we have created a sustainability decalogue that reflects the philosophy behind the biennial, which emphasizes looking below and beyond while fostering a sense of becoming and belonging. With this decalogue as our framework, we prioritize a smaller number of artists, but with better working conditions. We aim to provide them with larger creative spaces, recognizing that time and methodologies are crucial to their work. In December 2024, 1/3 of the list of artists for the Helsinki Biennial 25 was announced. The full list will be revealed now in coming March 25. Around half of the artists will present new commissions or site-specific works in Helsinki. Majority of them will be presented in Vallisaari, which as a protective island also sets us certain challenges as an exhibition venue, but we will have also few new commissions on the mainland. New commissions are to a large part produced in total, or at least partially in Helsinki, with local craftsmen and with local materials as one of our choices in the sustainability program. 2 of the new commissions will actually stay in Helsinki after the biennial, and they will be included to the city's collection of public art as a kind of a biennale legacy. From the former editions of the biennial in 21 and 23, we have now, for example, works by artist group Keiken and Alicia Kvade in our public art collection of the city. Several of the artists will also exhibit their works at 2 different biennial locations, providing the audience with a more comprehensive insight into their practice. So we take premium in kind of like working more deeply with the artist and not just necessarily focusing on one piece with each. So I wish to thank you all for the attention and your time this afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world, and thank you for your interest towards the 3rd edition of the Helsinki Biennial. And I also hope to see you all soon in Helsinki when we open the biennial in the beginning of June. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kati, for your presentation. Taken good notes of some of the words that we can discuss later, but I think you've pronounced some that are key, and one was optimism. I like that.
Yeah, it's very important for us. Kind of like we have had these doomsday exhibitions, for example, on the current state of the planet for such a long time, and they don't exactly seem to take us anywhere. So we have taken a bit different kind of a turn on that.
So it's great to have some good energy around. So we finally move to Paraguay, Asunción, where Freddy Casco is, that will be sharing also a recent project of the Fundación Texo. Freddy, when you want, I will show your images, okay?
Yes. Thank you, Ferran. Thank you, Ikate, for the invitation. And yes, I had a little problem with my desktop, so thanks, Ferran, for the presentation. You helped me. First and foremost, I would like to provide some geographical context about where I come from and where I am speaking from. Paraguay remains largely unknown to most of the world, a reality shaped by historical, cultural, and geographical factors that would be impossible to fully address in this brief presentation. Nonetheless, I would like to show you this map of South America, where Paraguay is located at the center. As you can see, it is a landlocked country surrounded by 3 major nations: Brazil, Argentina, and Bolivia. This is a geographical positioning carries significant geopolitical implications, but in recent years, it has also led to severe environmental challenges. These challenges have been exacerbated by decades of regional governmental policies allied to a predatory capitalist model, one in which Paraguay has unfortunately become a cautionary example. With this brief and likely insufficient introduction, I would like to discuss a curatorial project that took place at Fundación Texo for contemporary art in Asunción, Paraguay, where I'm the artistic director for the past 8 years, and which in many ways has to do with concerns related to climate change and how it affects like in the cities of South America. While Fundación Texo, as its name suggests, is dedicated to the promotion of contemporary art in Paraguay, we occasionally undertake interdisciplinary projects. This particular initiative intersected with architecture and botanical sciences. However, it was not conceived as such from the outset. Rather, it emerged through collective process, thought, and reflection shaped by the present realities of our environment. The project brought together three of the most renowned local architecture studios, expert biologists specializing in native plant species, and myself as the curator. The result was Terraria, a site-specific installation aimed at restoring air and water quality through natural means while reclaiming abandoned urban spaces, what they commonly referred to as vacant lots. These lots, where nature grows freely and chaotically, represent some of the last remaining green spaces in our neighborhoods. Now I would like to briefly read my curatorial statement in praise of the vacant lot. In the mid of 1970s, when my family moved to the bustling Barrio Obrero to a slightly less populated neighborhood, the surrounding area was dotted with vast vacant lots, many of them adjacent of unfenced. These spaces provided essential green lungs for a city that was growing slowly, chaotically, and inevitably toward a misunderstood notion of modernization. These semi-public spaces held an irresistible allure for neighborhood children, offering us a sense of adventure and mystery. Filled with fauna and flora reminiscent of regions of ancient forests. Decades later, when I first visited the architect Solano Benitez at his Gabinete of Arquitectura, I had to walk through what apparented to be, or indeed was, a vacant lot to reach his studio. Stepping into a space what felt like stepping into another time, back to a childhood spent among overgrown brush and generous shade of century-old trees. It was in that moment that I fully grasped the importance of these places. In a city with scarce or non-existent public policies, where green spaces receive little to no consideration, vacant lots stand as pockets of resistance. It took me another 25 years before I encountered a collective committed to reclaiming what we call vacant lots. When Fundación Texo invited architect José Cubilla to participate in Selection 5, a project conceived as a material manifesto envisioning the future through contemporary architecture, he instead me proposed a collaborative effort. Together with a group of architects, urban planners, and biologists, including Tecoja, Mínimo Común, Raúl Rivarola, and many others, we decided to address the most pressing challenges facing us today. As citizens, and more importantly, as human beings, urgent concerns such as air, water quality became central to the program. Thus, Terraria was born, an intervention at Fundación Texo space to explore possible architectural and botanical solutions for mitigating the harmful effects of climate change in the urban environment. This exhibition invites a deep introspection into contemporary architectural practice and its relationship with nature. Through this anonymous green oasis, the project encourages critical reflection. Amidst the asphalt and concrete, vacant lots remain hidden refuges of life, gardens where native vegetation flourishes, resilient against the harsh conditions of the urban landscape. In their apparent disorder, these wild spaces reveal an astonishing ability to adapt, regenerate, and carve out space in a world that often hostile or indifferent. Moreover, Terraria offers an invitation to wander within a confined space between raw and cultivated earth among native plants accompanied by the shooting sound of flowing water. Ultimately, it reveals an extraordinary hanging garden floating vacant lot nestled within the heart of an historic city block. Well, this is my curatorial statement. You can see there the site-specific intervention in the space of the Texas Foundation.
Tell me if I keep moving, Freddy. Do I continue?
Sorry?
Do I
Sorry?
continue with the images? Yes.
Yes, yes, please. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thanks so much, Freddy, for your presentation. I think the three of you addressed to a shared idea, I think, of fragility. Fragility of many things, and I understand the fragility that you're referring in this context in a bit metaphoric way. I mean, not only obviously environment, definitely, if not the most important, I think it shares the same level of importance with others, with other, I mean, human challenges now that are equally exposed to fragility. And I think that I understand that notion that can cross the three of your presentations, with Alima, Kathy, and Freddy, of being in a historical fragile situation. Each one of you have a different history to address, and also an extremely fragile situation of democracy. I remember, in that sense, Freddy, your first works that refer to the as an artist. I mean, referring to the memories of dictatorship in Asunción, in Paraguay, in the 1970s. I mean, I remember all these images that brought us to that universe. I mean, that was fortunately past, but still present in many memories. So that's the first idea I'm keeping from you. I don't know if you want to comment something of this on this idea of fragility before moving to the. I mean, the chat is being live now, so if you want to comment something among you, and then I will start. I mean, sharing the questions that appear in our chat.
Yes, of course. The problem is that the democracy in our countries in Latin America, it begins with the problem with the land. After the independence in Latin America, we began with the feudal properties, and this begins with the capitalism, with the colonial, with the post-colonial problems, and the problems what we have here now after the dictatorships that assolated our countries are that we have now. The problem with the land that we have now, the gentrification of our cities that we have now, is the problem of this political problem that we had in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the 80s. That we have to live with that.
Thank you. Maybe, I don't know if you, Kathy or Alima, want to add something on this view?
I think you're very right about the word fragility. It absolutely reflects where we are, in what space we are, not only geographically, but also in a political sense as well. If we talk about, I mean, of course, Kazakhstan, we have a long history with being part of Soviet Union, and then with our independence in the 90s. To this day, I think we're still questioning and trying to push towards getting our own space and our own searching for our own ideas. Something that has been talked a lot within artistic community, and the artworks of Central Asian artists does reflect this as well. And geographically, I think this is also a very common phrase when you say Kazakhstan. People would say, "Oh, it's somewhere between Russia and China," and I think this dynamic really does say a lot by being geographically between Russia and China and trying to be independent and more or less free, but with this sense of fragility. Of course, there's a lot of interest from America and from other countries, and Kazakhstan has a big Islamic part of the world that is also pushing these boundaries. So uh, on the one hand, we often discuss within our team that by being kind of, when you're pushed from all parts, you have this sense of space and sense of a space for reflection and a moment for this. So and maybe this should happen now with this fragility and vulnerability.
I think I mostly now connect the fragility to the current situation in global fight against climate urgency, or in this situation, especially now having the new re-inaugurated president in the United States, and there's all the threats that especially right-wing politics in many countries, how they are affecting the many nations' wishes to fight climate change. And that is also happening here in Finland with our sort of like half right-wing government, that the nations are not willing to put as much effort that what it was, for example, 2-3 years ago towards the fight against climate change. So I think this is the key moment in kind of like when thinking the fragility at the moment.
Okay. So I will start reading some of the questions that appear in our chat. I want to encourage you to participate with questions or comments that I will be reading. Until now, I will start with Larissa and Mila. That for one, I think that part of them they are in the same direction. Let's start by the first, that it's a bit more linked to our practice as curators, and is the practice of experience. That here is very clear. How to engage audiences in a way that will transform the passive way of engaging with curatorial practices, that is in most occasions exhibitions. And so how to transform that into something active. And I think that that's linked to Mila's question of how can we be sure that we address issues of disability and accessibility within contemporary art. Knowing that we are ensuring inclusive practices while empowering artists with lived experience of disability to maintain full agency over the work. Maybe you want to share your experiences with that. Maybe Kathy has had that experience in the past, I'm sure.
Well, when I'm thinking the coming biennial project, for example, we have been trying to look into ways of doing some things not necessarily in the same way we do always. So we have, for example, some projects that we are producing new works with artists together with environmental organizations to the biennial. So the projects are really not just a new artwork, but it's also part of an existing environmental project. And I think this is and has been a really interesting, also kind of like working with a totally different kind of a partner, and then also working with a huge group of, for example, researchers coming from that resource to us. For artists, it has been amazing opportunity to kind of like be really like showered in knowledge and research. But then also we hope that, for example, that can be a way to sort of like somehow lower the threshold of what people often have with contemporary art, that it might be a bit challenging, it might be difficult, but when we can also do it through the lens of really an environmental project. So I think that might be a possibility to engage. Whereas also we have some more practical, real engaging projects like different groups that we are working with, be that in the schools or in senior centers, so they are participating in the production. But that's more kind of like a common thing that we have done also earlier in previous editions and exhibitions.
In my case, Ferran, as an artist, I had a little problem to propose to other artists how to engage, because I believe in freedom, how to engage to an artist too. But as a citizen, for me, it was more more easy to propose to architects and scientists to propose this. How can we think about an architectural projects of the present to conceive the future of our children here? Thinking of terraria, and that's where we began to think about terraria. How can we think about the future of our children? And this where it begins this project of thinking about the future in Asunción, and what was our present here. What was our commitment? Not just as architects and curators and cultural institutions, but just as citizens living in this city.
I would also like to comment Mila's questions about disability. I think that that's a way that we as curators or institutional responsibles of different institutions, we can address is that understanding that some disabilities can allow us to have different approaches on reality that will be enriching for everybody. I mean, it's not only a question of being sure that people that have disabilities have to have the same kind of access, but that those disabilities can allow us to see things differently. For example, I remember working with here in Barcelona with artist Ignacia Ballí, with people with different grades of visual impairment. I mean, most of us, many of us have some kind of visual impairments. I mean, without my glasses, I cannot even leave home or even move without moving home. To blind people, people that really falls within that old-fashioned category. It was incredible to see how they could reshape the institution via the ways of understanding that. How you need sometimes to think of other senses that have to be developed. From smell to touch, and also ways of understanding, especially in our, as curators, what is retinality. So it was incredible how a project like that could have an impact on the institution itself. I could change how the institution operates for everybody. So I think that that's part of what we have to welcome everything, linked to disability as an opportunity also to open to, this diversity of of practices and enrich us. There's a second set of questions by Mila that basically have to do with ethical issues. And sooner or later, what she mentioned here, I mean, it's always around us. That is censorship. I think that goes a bit beyond. I mean, that will need, Alfredo, a whole seminar, not a webinar, I mean, a series. But it's true that, I mean, when we address to these global pressing issues, always we are stepping yellow lines many times, sometimes crossing the yellow lines and arriving to the danger zone of the red zone. That changes. I remember it was in an ICATE meeting in a Congress years ago that I remember. That was after all the speeches and after all the Congress and the whole lectures, having a drink one evening, that appeared in a conversation. And I remember asking colleagues sitting there, okay, what are the yellow lines in your institutions, in your cities, in your countries? And it's very interesting how each one of us gave a completely different answer. So the first thing that we have to understand is that there's nothing that cannot be addressed. I want to know your opinion. I have my own, but maybe I will leave it for the end. But what is your own opinion on that? Trying to think that we are talking here about global challenges.
I don't really kind of like quickly recall any situation that would have needed sort of like really censorship in this sense. But I have noticed that, for example, roughly a year ago, when talking about the Helsinki Biennial, and at that point not being even able to speak yet about the concept, but more in general about how we wish to do the biennial and which are our ambitions when it comes to sustainability. And this was in Athens for a lecture, and there was a question, a very sort of like a angry comment that the person found it very interesting or weird or even not appropriate to do such ecological politics within arts with taxpayers' money. And that was kind of like the most hectic comment that I got at that point. And yeah, of course, when thinking of then ethics and also the freedom of artists, and when you have a framework like this and you wish to sort of like lift environmental issues to the fore. Of course, we are working with artists who feel similar or kind of like who share our interest in those. So kind of like, again, there, we don't feel that we are directing them or that there is censorship, but it can be also perceived by other people that we are mixing, for example, too much environmental politics with arts.
Larissa posed the question and raised her hand, so please.
Thank you everybody for this amazing session. I have a question for Kati, because you mentioned storytelling, and as a curator, how can you balance storytelling and aesthetics to create exhibitions that resonate deeply and drive meaningful conversations? Because we know that we have to ensure that artistic narratives, they remain impactful, emotionally resonate, and thought-provoking, but without overwhelming or alienating the viewers. So this is for everyone as well, but because I remember Kati was talking about storytelling, so I was wondering what she thinks about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa, for the beautiful question. I think for us, it is as curators a way of kind of like also building the exhibition. But first and foremost, it is a tool that many of the artists who we have invited have decided to work on. They are, for example, creating stories of envisioning better futures, be that for certain plant or animals. And I think that is, for example, quite approachable for the audience, because they are taking into a narrative and given the prospect of that if we humans, for example, do something better, then this kind of a flourishment would be possible in next 20 years or something. Or then, for example, when looking into the stories of the indigenous people. And then we are kind of like going a lot back in time. But then we can see that actually there is a lot of kind of a wisdom with living sort of like strongly in connection with the soil and the earth, and kind of like with a much more appreciative way of living together with the whole kind of like nature around us. And then these stories, I think it's also beneficial to bring them into larger knowledge of also art audiences. And then this is something that also many artists in the exhibition do. So those are just some examples, but also kind of like, though we don't have clear chapters, we have an island, we have a park, and we have a museum. So we have three very different kind of venues. So I would say it's kind of like separate chapters here and there, but then I'm pretty sure that people can quite nicely make the red line that connects those all.
I was thinking about the 2-3 questions that were addressed, and I think I came up to one phrase, community engagement. I think community engagement is actually very close to answering about the accessibility and ethical responsibilities. I think for taking our examples at Celine, we're a young institution and also we're a private one. So I think, and also unfortunately, there is not as many contemporary institutions in Kazakhstan and in Central Asia. So there's a lot of great initiatives, but not as many. So this, of course, gives us a sense of urgency for things to happen now. For the if we talk about accessibility and kind of ethical responsibilities, we within our program try to invite different people to our neighbors as well, actually, to neighbors within where we're situated in the city to participate in the program. So this gives us, I think, this sense of grounding and ethical responsibility towards what we do. So I think in all sense, community engagement, even if we talk about accessibility, disability advocacy groups that can also help understand the barriers for people who have certain physical or mental disabilities, so that we can work towards them to eliminate them.
Thank you. And is there something else maybe that Freddy you want to add? If not, I will say something about this notion of censorship, because I think it's very linked to what we're talking today. I think first of all, we have to divide into at least two situations. One is when most of us work in, let's say, democratic countries where the risk that we face are civil or professional. That the worst thing that could happen to you is that you have to resign of your position because of an unsustainable situation. But also, obviously, we can't forget that a good amount of the world, is not under those privileged conditions, and where an artist or a curator expressing their opinion, could face, risk their lives or their freedom. So once said that, for the second, I think that I'm not allowed to speak because fortunately I work in a country where, that doesn't happen. But we have to recognize that, the responsibility is for the rest of us, to support those who don't have that freedom to speak. And be the first to give voice to them in a global arena. That's my first, reflection. And the second is that, okay, once we work in this, let's say, privileged conditions of democracy, is that we have to be sure as curators that everything can, I think there's no theme that cannot be addressed. There's absolutely not one. Even when we talk about these red lines and yellow lines, I think that if an artist refers to something, it's our duty as curators to be sure that that conversation can be started. And that implies many things. One of them is being sure that we are doing in the best possible way. And it's not just a provocative work that will do little more than provoke. Provoking is okay, but then you have to defend the work. And for that, the work we have to recognize it has to be extremely good. If not, it's very difficult. So, but I think it's our responsibility to be sure that the conditions of generating a discussion are always there, so nothing could not be said. And that's, I think, because if an artist makes a work, I think it's could be our job to do that interface with reality. Sorry for my own, but I want to express that because I think that's key in this discussion today.
Yes, well, here in Paraguay, for instance, we work in very weak conditions of democracy. For instance, I am member of the committee of censorship and free expression committee of the ICA International, and I presented a case recently of censorship in Paraguay. So we had cases here of censorship, and we have problems here. So it's not easy to work as an artist in Paraguay. We have constantly harassment of the government, of the in the political context we are living as artists, as activists, as citizens.
May I ask, Ferran, something from you?
Yes.
From your recent experience in Ecuador, because then also that is a country that has been in a lot of a turmoil in past few years. And we have some artists coming from Ecuador for the biennial, and that's kind of like been following that now for over a year, the situation and how it's been developing. So did that affect you curating the biennial there in Cuenca now in any way? Are there any censorship issues there?
I didn't experience any. And I have to say, it was a very brave team at the biennial that said, there was no problems with really nothing. In some occasions, I think we were, but more or less, I would say, in a personal, in a extremely small institutional, very close things that had to be dealt with care. But it was something extremely local. But I think that the questions that the artists of the biennial, because the biennial is not. We know that Katy were not the curators, that the artists of the biennial brought. Some of them were extremely directed to the situation in Ecuador at the moment and the fragility of democracy that was shown immediately. That's why this, in fact, was a previous curator of the biennial who wrote that. Maybe tomorrow, no, painfully today. And those ideas were already there. I don't know, I have to say, what would have happened if the biennial would have opened only 4 weeks later. Probably nothing, because I think that the biennial is also quite supported locally. Maybe somebody from Ecuador could answer that with more care, but I would say that there's nothing. Also, that I was saying, I think that the works, because that's what I think is our job. That the works really responded to those issues in a complex way that could not be read as just a manifesto. That would address to really the complexity of the fragility of democracy, of social inequalities, and of the fragility of environment. There are more questions in our chat that I would like. I mean, some of them are difficult to bring because I think they need a lot of time to discuss. But one of them is about artists that come from groups that traditionally are not represented in the art world. We know that the world has changed a lot in the last few years, and hopefully the global south is much more visible now than only 20 years ago. But what do you think that I mean, how can we make a certain advocacy to insist in those, I mean, on that path? What do you think? And it's true that it has been the center of of so many of the major biennials and even documenta in the last in the last few years.
I think it demands a lot of preparing, kind of like learning, because there's a lot of information that we are not familiar within our Western context. So one needs to be very aware of that when thinking of the art, for example, of the First Nations or indigenous artists, be that in South or in North or in East. So I think using the knowledge of the artist and also different researchers, and also providing that information, that kind of a lens also for the audience. So those are the key things. But it's a very sort of like delicate, and also you need to be a very balanced with kind of like how you present, and to make sure that you provide with enough context, because it might be very distance for those who are more used to, let's say, this Western art context or Western art history.
I agree. I think our work is a lot about listening. Listening to the artist, responding to what the artist says. In a way, at least for our work here, and also what Freddie has said, I feel it's very similar for us here. The work that we do is actually a form of art activism, where we understand that things that we do might have different circumstances, might lead to certain circumstances, and to be mindful of whether it's about censorship or whether it's about curating works of artists whom we don't know as much. I think it's a lot about listening to the way the work is done, what materials are used, and what is the context. I think that's also very important. And this is this approach. This has to be an approach that has a lot of care in it, which I think sometimes in a very fast-moving world we do forget. So yeah.
That is something that you want to add here? Not. I will read. I mean, I will read it. Haven't read it before, but I think it's relevant here. Reveal the dream, if I'm pronouncing it well. I read. As an artist and curator here in Senegal, we had almost 12 years of censorship with our ex-president Macky Sall. Internet had been shut down multiple times. Then artists, curators, scholars, and researchers came forward to organize visually or by using the murals. I myself, I have curated a show with a curator from Chicago, an exhibition called You Are Beautiful the Way You Are, towards that. Recently, many of these protagonists have been appointed in the new government. So we are hopefully on this part of the world, censorship can be used against the censor in a good way, definitely by art practitioners. Well, hopefully some of these stories end well. Congratulations for all of you if you achieve that. Okay, we only have 5 more minutes. I have I mean, there are other questions that are appearing here. I don't know which one read before the other. I would say there's one that it's interesting, and it's great that somebody, Mila, thank you for bringing this question. It is how to keep our own mental health and well-being as curators. I mean, we need, we need ICT to provide us with some kind of advice. I mean, for that. But I would say that the support of colleagues is very important. I don't know if you agree with that, but I mean, knowing that you have a friendly face, because sometimes that doesn't happen in your immediate, and also recognizing that our job, yes, is emotionally intense, but there are other jobs that are even much more. I mean, we are lucky that we also work with emotions, and maybe that help us.
I would say Leonard Cohen words: "Love is the only engine of survival."
I think that's beautiful. Okay, so I don't know if you want to comment something else, because we only have 4 minutes to be on time and respect the schedule. Or maybe Alfredo, you want to sum up?
To me, it was, thank you, Ferran. I think it was incredibly inspiring what I really like is the diversity of perspective that you brought on the table and the speakers brought on the table. And also the fact that we are kind of asking a bit of a difficult questions that not necessarily having straight answer, because the answer depends also on our context, but it's important to bring up these questions. And I like to believe the IKT is a safe space to ask this question. And for us as a curator, I mean, each of us really are some sort of a catalyst for things to happen. That's why we bring people together, we bring ideas together, we bring people together, we create outputs out of these questions, and that's super important, I think, to be able to address these questions head on, because sometimes it happens organically, maybe, that we are so involved in our own cocoon, living in or working in an institution or living in a certain context, or working as a freelance independent curator to a deadline or to a brief, that somehow we just we don't think about these questions, and because it's we take the list of the path of least resistance somehow, which is fair enough. I mean, because sometimes we can't do more than a certain things. It's reality kicks in somehow, and you have to kind of deliver whatever we are engaged with. But this is really, really important actually to have this question at least at the back of our mind, I think, because it sometimes it's just a tiny difference. It's just a tiny little action that we can take it in one direction and in another direction that makes the difference, especially for ourselves. And there is one of the questions that it was about the ethical part of kind of being a curator and trying to kind of put some narratives out there, and sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes actually we can find a way to ethically live with ourselves in a good way. But we need to ask this question, especially among our colleagues, hopefully to inspire also future generation of curators to embed these topics in their own way of thinking as well as doing. That's actually what I took away from today's webinar, and it's not a small thing, I believe. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on that, but for me, it was really, really important.
For me, just to end saying that I think the future will bring us new challenges. I mean, they're already here, and I think things are changing very quickly in our world. And I think that we can't be silent. I mean, and our work is needed, think that also answers the question of our mental health, that we work to make the world a better place to live, and considering that we are fragile, that the places where we live socially, environmentally, are fragile, and we have to think of the power of art, the power of culture to bring the ideas, to generate a discussion, and hopefully to add a bit of at least a safe place and a place also to enjoy at least the reflections.
All right, thank you very much. I think we can wrap it up here. The webinar has been recorded, and it will be part of our resource page on the website. So feel free to go back to that resource page. We also have all the other webinars we did actually over the last few years online, and I myself actually have been back to kind of listen to some of them because I'm working on different projects here, and I needed to kind of have that input, that voices, that sort of a reflection to go ahead. I think it's an incredible resource that we have available publicly. And I would like to thank you, Ferran and Alima and Freddie and Kathy, as fabulous speakers. I would like to thank Carolina as well for organizing the thing. I would like to thank the board of IKT as well, that we kind of went through all the submissions of the open call from the webinar. It wasn't really an easy task, but they're really incredible bunch of people, I have to say. And I would like also to thank the Media Majlis Museum here at Northwestern Qatar, who made available the resources to do these webinars. Thank you so much to everyone. And bear in mind, actually, the next one is very soon, is the 10th of February. So that there is one after the other for logistic reason. I hope to see you there. And also for those who ask to various people about the next Congress in April here in the GCC region, we're going to open the registration and the application for grants very, very soon, at the end of this month. So we have made it available a number of travel grants as well. But you will read all the sort of other details when we publish the registration and the open call. Thank you much again. Thank you, Ferran. Thank you, Amina, Kathy, Freddie, and thank you everyone to showing up and making this possible with your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.